Final Destination is by far one of the best horror franchises out there, and the biggest reason why it's become such a landmark in American horror is because of the brutality and extremely dark death scenes. Filled with Rube Goldberg machines and dizzying set design, each death in the series is incredibly inspiring in its own special way. I'd love nothing more than to fit all of the Final Destination deaths in this list, but I can only do 10 in a top 10 list, so today I'll be counting down the top 10 most brutal Final Destination deaths. This one is almost as remarkable as the death that immediately follows it, and while the scene is rife with foreshadowing, it was hard to imagine exactly how brutal this death was going to be. The big mouth jaws of life operator pays no attention to the pipe that is positioned directly behind the head of Cat in the car he is attempting to open, but the audience can see what's coming. As the airbag deploys, Cat suddenly has a new forehead piercing, and death has claimed his newest victim. Frankie is a pervert, but he absolutely doesn't deserve his character's vile end. He's sitting in a drive-thru, ordering some food, when a runaway car plunges the car behind his in line. The engine block is thrown from underneath its hood, and the fan in front of the engine carves through the back of Frankie's head. This one is a brutal death not because of the shock but, quite frankly, because of its lack of suddenness. These two girls, while being dull and not particularly great people, did not deserve to slowly burn to death while prepping for their classmates' funerals. The tanning beds they are in become so hot that it melts the goggles onto one of their eyes. Occurring instantly after number 10 on our list, the explosion that results from airbag head spears dropped cigarette causes a barbed wire fence to be tossed through the air and directly through a character's body. This works a bit like a cheese wire, cutting his top half from his bottom and a couple of pieces in between. A brutal death, and he's alive long enough to wonder what on earth just happened, which makes it all the more frightening. After things in the massage room begin to go haywire, this unfortunate character throws himself off of his acupuncture table, driving the needles deeper than they're supposed to go. As he tries hopelessly to crawl to safety, he knocks a large stone Buddha from its shelf, where it quickly crashes to the floor and crushes his head in the process. One of the more shocking deaths that isn't immediately obvious or out of nowhere. The whole thing is telegraphed from the very beginning, but there are so many things happening inside the salon that Samantha is visiting that it's more of a matter of which one is going to be her fate. We have an exploding can of hairspray, a malfunctioning chair, a fan that falls perilously close to her head, and a slippery floor. Then, finally, it's a rock that one of her idiotic sons is throwing across the street that gets catapulted through her eye socket by a stupid lawnmower. Everything seems to be going wrong, and anything that happens during the entire duration of the scene could be our character's downfall. For Erin, however, she falls backwards against a nail gun that apparently is missing its safety, because it launches a dozen nails directly into her skull. Olivia has a nasty death. She gets cut to pieces by the LASIK laser, and she can't see while it's happening. I don't know a scene in the entire franchise that was more uncomfortable than this one, and her death would probably go down as the most painful other than the tanning bed scene mentioned earlier. It's gruesome, it's appalling, and, to top it all off, the kid dies right in front of his mother's eyes. After surviving a near asphyxiation from the most unprofessional dentist in history, the main character of the movie tells Tim to be careful of the pigeons, and he immediately runs into a crowd of pigeons and gets squished for it. In the biggest and most elaborate Rube Goldberg machine of the entire series, Candace's death is quick and final. Her entire body collapses into an unrecognizable mess after a particularly low-scoring uneven bars dismount, and her dreams of Olympic glory are ended. One of the most surprising deaths of the entire series, this was one of the few that made its audience jump right out of their seats in amazed disgust. You knew she was going to die, but I don't think anyone was expecting it to be that bad.